Why are you nervous?
But I meant like I've never met anyone that's not. I can't really explain.
Is this your first time seeing a drag queen?
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
Excited, but a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit nervous. I've never seen a drag queen before.
And what do you think?
I think it's cool.
It's great.
Yeah.
Why are you nervous?
I don't know. It's just different and new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that boy can wear makeup?
Hold on, who's this? Is this the remix that I made?
Do you agree that makeup is for everyone?
I think this might have been the remix. I wanted to start with the Libs of TikTok. Oh no, this is the Libs of TikTok.
But I meant like
okay, well, we're gonna stop it there. Apropos, timely. CBC, for those of you who don't know, is the Canada Broadcasting Corporation, the Crown Corporation. By the way, YouTube can't possibly have a problem with that because it's got cute kid music in behind it. It's produced by the CBC. So how can YouTube possibly have a problem with that? There's an amazing thing. When kids feel uncomfortable, oftentimes there's a damn good reason for it. And grown adults, I don't care if they're drag queens. I don't care if they're just performers who want to talk about their job. Performers, adult performers. Generally, kids know when something is inappropriate. They know when something is pushing the boundaries of what, I don't want to say safe space because that has a different, not so good connotation anymore. They know when something is not appropriate, even for themselves. And for those of you out there, oh, if a kid doesn't want to go on a roller coaster and they feel scared, you're not going to push them to, ask them to push it up. This is a little bit different in that it's fundamentally different. When an adult, and I don't care if they're drag queens or heterosexual adults, get a kid in a position where the kid feels uncomfortable, and then they say, you'll get over it. There's a word for that. This once upon, what we just witnessed, the CBC state-funded, taxpayer-funded government media, what we just saw the CBC promoting in any other decade would have been very close to something that would be borderline criminal. Hey, let's get a bunch of kids, have them sit down with adult workers, because I don't care if you have a problem with drag queens or not. It is adult entertainment. It is fundamentally sexual in that if the issue were just to introduce people to people, the fact that the man is dressing up as a woman would not be relevant to them meeting. The kid meets someone who looks, like that. The natural course of conversation between an adult who likes to dress up as a different sex and a kid is not why the adult likes to dress up as a different sex, especially when it's not your kid. I mean, it's like it's 1984. It's like I'm having trouble actually maintaining my own sense of levity and humor this morning and yesterday and this week. It's sickness. It's state-funded, taxpayer-funded sickness, and it is conditioning children to get over feeling uncomfortable when stranger adults put them in situations that they know are inappropriate. It is what it is. There's no other way about it. And you're not a bigot. You're not a drag queen phobe. That could be a heterosexual stripper. That could be a heterosexual adult. That could be an attractive woman, a chiseled male. That could be anybody. Adults having these types of conversations with children are inappropriate, and the kids know it. The adults even know it. There was one point in that interview where the male drag queen asks the little girl if she likes jewelry, and then he says to the little girl, "You're too young for jewelry," because they know the kids are too young for certain things. This is one of them. If it weren't one of them, they wouldn't be jamming it down your face day in and day out, trying to normalize it. Oh boy, I'm sorry, I'm screaming. So it's funny because that video, Libs of TikTok posted this morning. Now, I met Libs of TikTok at a PragerU event. To say that, you would be surprised by the person, the fact that she's a woman is not the relevant factor here. The person behind the persona. Once upon a time, by the way, I've known of Libs of TikTok for a while. Maybe it's because of some internal prejudice or prejudgments. I thought it would be a man. I thought it was a man behind the account. I don't know why, but It would not be reflexive for me to think that the person behind the Libs of TikTok account would be a religious Jewish woman. Just wouldn't occur to me. But maybe that's just because, on my end of the internet, it's a lot of boys, men, and maybe also I'm brought up with the idea that type of in your face, rubbing your face in the mirror of humanity. I don't know that, some people look for fights and others don't. I'm not sure that Libs of TikTok, Chaya, looked for the fights, but the fight came to her, and we're gonna get into it. Now, what I'm gonna do is just the brief intro with Chaya on YouTube. Then we're gonna shut it down on YouTube, and we're gonna carry on Rumble and Locals. And I should have actually just double checked that we are currently, in fact, streaming on Rumble, which we are. Good. And Locals seems to be good. We're good. Steve C in the Viva Barneslaw.locals.com chat says, because there's no women on the internet. That's a joke, and hardy heart. All right, there are women on the internet. There are women who are the most unlikely. I don't want to say heroes of the time because that's a little lofty, but they're the most unlikely hero of the era. We're going to talk to one of them right now. Chaya, I'm bringing you on in 3, 2, 1. Ma'am, how goes the battle?
Hello, how are you?
Very well. I'm good. How are you? But my goodness. Okay, look. Before we get into the madness of the world that you have been documenting in real time, and the beauty and the horror, and I'm putting horror in quotes, behind what is the Libs of TikTok. In as much as you've been doxxed, and we're going to get into that, or you've been outed. But if you don't mind, give people just an overview of who you are as a human, as an upbringing, and how you got to be where you are right now in this crazy world.
So I grew up in LA. I'm a religious Jew, and I actually never went to public school. I went to private school, so I'm very thankful to my parents for that. And then, after I finished my studies, I was living in New York. I was a real estate agent. And then suddenly COVID happened. And that's when I found myself unable to do my job. So I was sort of, at home bored, just like most other people probably watching this, and looking for new stuff to do. And then that's when I stumbled on TikTok. And I think that's when TikTok started becoming really big in America, because everyone was in the same boat, right? Like, we weren't allowed to go to work. We weren't allowed to leave our house. I was in LA at the time, actually, and it was really bad in California. I mean, you were literally not allowed to go out of your house. Everything was closed besides like a couple stores for like food, and they would force you to wear masks. People were screaming at you to put on masks. It was really bad. Like, I didn't leave my home for like 3-4 months. And then, so TikTok is getting really big. I'm seeing that on Twitter, all of this, these TikToks are going viral on Twitter. So I went on to TikTok, and I found, I just kept finding all these really funny videos. And at first it was more just COVID stuff. So it was like people thinking about getting vaccinated and how excited they were. And, all the fear mongering, like, people getting kicked off of planes for not wearing masks, for like 2-year-olds not wearing masks. There was a lot of videos of people like idolizing Fauci, having Fauci statues and Fauci candles and Fauci stuff, Fauci's face all over their home. So that kind of stuff was really funny. And, also I knew that it was a little bit like hypocritical, because people are losing their jobs for not wanting the vaccine. And then you have these people like singing about how excited they are. And then, it was, Fauci's lies were starting to be uncovered. And, it just was, COVID started to feel, more like a psyop. And so I'm sharing these videos, and people love them. They start going viral. I start getting tons of followers. So I'm going to TikTok for more videos, right? Because this is really fun. And then I came across all those other type of videos, which is, the teachers, the activists, the groomers.
But before we get there, even if I may just go back, I don't need to know what private school. Do you mean like private religious school, or just private? And okay, just because it's going to contextualize Well, I got another question, which you may or may not. Well, I'll get to contextualize. Do you call it ultra orthodox or Lubavitcher?
Just for Orthodox, yeah.
And Hasidic. So, growing up, and if I may ask, what age bracket are you? And you're a young woman.
I'm 28.
Okay. Growing up in a Hasidic religious household, are you exposed to the internet? Did your parents like not give you a computer, cell phone, things like that?
No, we had internet. No, we definitely had internet. Also, I'm not old, but I'm not that young. So like I remember not having like good internet, and I remember when the internet was starting to become more mainstream. Like I remember my parents having flip phones before there were smartphones, and then they had the Blackberries. No, but I got my first smartphone when I was 13 or 14.
Okay, so it's not like I say sheltered, and I didn't mean to say like, did you have internet because you're in such a the dark? I just mean like, were you exposed to this? You were not sheltered from it. Your parents didn't say, absolutely not. I don't want you to see the rest of that sinful world. Which I say this without judgment because I know there's people who are not religious that have a similar practice. So you see this stuff growing up. You're not unfamiliar with the internet.
No.
Go and study real estate, and you become a real estate broker.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're living in LA, and you're in LA when did the handle Libs of TikTok start?
It started. It actually started after a little bit like after COVID. So COVID started in March, right? And then I went home for like a couple months. I just like moved in with my parents, with a couple of my siblings just to like wait it out. And then in the beginning of the summer, I went back to New York to continue doing my job. And it started, so the handle was created in November of 2020. So it started really like after really in the middle of COVID, like after the real madness. But COVID is what got me started into like following all the stuff, because that's when I started like seeing all this content and really like being interested in the government. And it's like, you're stuck at home and there's people telling you like you're not allowed to leave your house, and I'm like, well, who are these people that are able to tell us what we're allowed to do and not? Like, I'm used to living in America, in a free country. I've never been told that I can't go to work, I can't do my job, I can't leave my house, I have to wear a mask. So that's when, and I think it's not just me, it's probably a lot of Americans. It was like a wake-up call, COVID. It was like, are you gonna pay attention and like get involved, or you can just, let people tell you what to do, let people control you. And that's really when I started getting into politics and really being interested in it. And then I created the handle.
It's amazing. You're sort of like the more polite version of Gerald Celente, who, I had on a week and a half ago, where he just did a stream where he says, talking to the government, who the F are you to tell me what to do? Take the jab, shove it up your butt. It's just a more eloquent, polite way of doing it. But yeah. Okay, so you were practicing real estate in New York pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits, everything's shut down. I mean, you went from I don't know which one's the pot and which one's the frying pan, but you went from New York, which was pretty much as strict as it got in the States, to California, which was pretty much as strict as it got in the States, still a little less strict than up in Quebec, where we were under curfew for 5.5 months.
Yeah.
In 2021. So everything's shut down. So you go home to California to spend time to stay with your family. And then, had you heard of TikTok before COVID?
No, never.
So you're stuck at home, and you fall into the doom scrolling of the interwebs and stumble upon TikTok.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Let me get my camera. There we go. Who's calling? No, I'm joking. So you doom scroll and you discover TikTok, and you're like, I mean, is your initial reaction, what the hell is this?
So yes, because putting aside like the actual content in the videos, as a person, like I've always been super private. I've always been like I mean, the proof is that when they doxed me, they weren't even able to find any pictures of me because I never had a public Facebook account. I never had a public Instagram. I never put myself out there. I just, the thought of someone, like videoing themselves and like putting it out on TikTok where potentially hundreds of millions of people could see it and they have no idea who you are, you don't know who they are, and you're putting out content just talking about yourself, like that thought to me is completely mortifying. So putting aside like that the actual content is very cringe and in sometimes in some cases really dangerous. So like putting that aside, just that idea is just not my style at all. It's not something I ever connected with. And so that in itself, I was like, this is like so cringy and like so weird. And so that really was like, okay, let me see what this is about. When I saw that, it's basically a platform for narcissists, I think, and that's why it attracts liberals, right? It's mainly liberals on TikTok because they're narcissists. They just want to sit and talk about their gender and, you know, this is how you should refer to me, or like, I'm white and this is why I am a bad person because I'm white, or it's all about me. These are my pronouns. You have to refer to me as this. It's a very narcissistic worldview. And I think that attracts liberals, and TikTok is made for that. So it's just like, it all works together so well.
Okay, so you discover this, and it's interesting. You see, your personal Twitter handle is even newer. It's like 2022. You had no social media presence before Libs of TikTok to speak of. Maybe Facebook. I don't really.
No, I never had Facebook. So I had an Instagram account like years ago that I actually deleted a few years ago. It just like I was never really into it. I was never really into social media. You know, like I have my friends, I have my family. I use my phone. I talk to them on the phone. I could send them pictures through text message or WhatsApp, and I never really felt the need to have a social media account.
Okay. I mean, it's fascinating. So you discover TikTok, you're like, what the hell is this? And you're like the rest of us. I don't remember when I discovered TikTok. I've known of it for a while, but I never found anything alluring about it. And even like the rubbernecking at the car accidents type thing was not something I was interested in scrolling through TikTok for. And I don't remember when I discovered Libs of TikTok for the first time, but I remember it on Twitter. You see that, when do you get the idea to say, holy crap, this might be interesting to other people. I'm going to screen grab this or whatever. I think screenshot it or record it is the proper term, and post it to Twitter. When did you get that idea? And what was the growth curve? Because no one had, people are doing it now, but I think you were the first, if not close to the first.
So it was April of 2021 when Libs of TikTok was created. And it started because, like I said, I kept seeing these videos going viral on Twitter, and they were all COVID-related videos. And I was like, you know, what is this TikTok thing? These videos keep going viral. And I was like, what if I find more of these videos? Like maybe there's more from where this came from. And so that's when I like started just like researching TikTok, spending a lot of time on it. And then in April, I actually made the handle Libs of TikTok. So it's coming up about on 2 years.
Amazing. Anonymous, you're posting this stuff. When does it start really gaining traction and really becoming not a pillar, but rather something emblematic of the times? Like when does it explode?
I would say like almost immediately, because, okay, so Joe Rogan gave me a shout out, and I'll never forget where I was sitting. And I had at that time, I think like 30,000 followers. So this is probably like 2-3 months in, and Joe Rogan gives me a shout out, and I get about like 25-30,000 followers within like 2 days. And then so it was like steadily growing. And then like a few weeks later, I probably had like 60,000 followers or 75,000 followers. And Joe Rogan gave me a second shout out, and he put me over the 100,000 mark. I got like 40,000 followers within 2 days.
No, okay.
And then, so yeah, it was really like, I'm very thankful to Joe Rogan because he was the first really big, notable person to like openly talk about and support Libs of TikTok?
I'm going to ask this question here, then we're going to end it, and you'll answer it on Rumble when I shut the YouTube side down. Not because of the answer; it's provocative or anything. When Rogan shouts you out, like in retrospect, or I mean, at the time when you thought you were anonymous, you might have like, "This is the coolest thing ever." But was there any part of you that said, "Holy shit!" Like now the forest fire just got out of hand. Like you're a bunch of kids playing around, you have a fire, and one kid's like, "Hey, let's dump some gas on it." And then you realize this is out of control and I have no way of putting this fire out type thing. But before you answer, everyone head over to Rumble because we're gonna end this on YouTube and doing it in 3, 2, 1. Changes nothing from our end, Chaya. We're gonna. So yeah, did you immediately panic? Like, holy cows, this just got out of hand. Maybe they are gonna come find out who I am. I'm no longer gonna be anonymous. I'm gonna be public enemy number one because everybody, I presume, at that point in time, either loved or hated Libs of TikTok.
Actually, no, because I didn't have as much haters then, because we weren't really doing like real like research stories then. We weren't. I wasn't. I don't think a single teacher like had gotten fired yet as a result of Libs of TikTok's work. We weren't like calling on schools to like remove porn, and we weren't really making like a wave where it actually mattered, like in legislation and in changing school policies. At that point, it was just like funny viral videos. So, and I have no background in media or in politics or in journalism or in social media and anything. So I had no idea where this was going to go. Like every time I went up, like 1,000 followers went to the next level. Like when I went from having just a few thousand, a few hundred, a few thousand, then when I hit 10, I was like, whoa, like maybe I'll hit like 20. And then when I hit 20, I was like, whoa. And then maybe I'll hit 50. And then I was like, and then when I hit 100, I was like, wow. I was like, okay, but like, you know, I'm never going to reach 200,000. And I'm just like, but it's fun. So I was just continuing to do what I was doing. And then, you know, it did take quite some time. I would say probably about like 8 months until I was like, wow, this might be something really big. And then I was like, they're gonna try to come after me. I think that took like maybe even longer, maybe even 10 months, like because I was still I was still just like posting videos and, you know, sort of starting to post a lot of school content and stuff about hospitals and stuff like that, you know, making more of an impact and more of a wave. And that's when like the haters started really coming in full force. And then at that point also there was, there was all the news sites were talking about it, like Fox News and Daily Wire and The Blaze and Breitbart, like Daily Caller. They're all picking up content from Libs of TikTok and following it for leads. And I'm getting mentioned in articles. So like at that point, I was like, this might be something big. And I had probably about, I think I had like 400,000 followers then. And I was like, I think it's possible this could hit 1 million, like in a few months. And that's really when I was like, this could be big. And then like 3 months later is when I was doxxed.
All right, so now let's get into that a little bit. I can imagine for someone who's not, you know, familiar with the internet, the idea that this just got super huge. They're going to try to find out who I am, but you're one of the fortunate ones in that you don't have hypocritical, compromising stuff on the internet that they're going to really come and blackmail you or whatever, or destroy your reputation. In your case, it's just a matter of letting people know who you are so they can know who to harass and whatever. How does it happen? I mean, it's Taylor Lorenz when she's writing the piece. Was it the New York Times or was it wasn't the
Washington Post?
Washington Post. So she's writing a piece on Libs of TikTok. How does she ultimately find out who you are?
So when I created the handle, I made it in my name. And then when I decided to do Libs of TikTok, I switched the handle. And I believe she got that information from Twitter themselves. So she got the information from this Antifa guy who's funded by the German government, actually, his name is Travis Brown. And he basically, he basically creates archives and like databases on like hate, what they call hate. And if you go back to my first Tucker interview, we actually go into that. But she got the information from him, and he is actually a former Twitter engineer. So how he got my information, we believe Twitter may have helped them. I don't have a way to prove it, but one day maybe the truth will come out. But that's basically how she found it. And then she was searching up my name, and there's nothing really available about me online at that time because I never had a public profile or anything. So she just goes to LA and shows up to everyone's home who has my last name.
And there's not that many with that spelling. I mean, it's it's pronounced Raichik or Raichik?
Raichik.
Raichik. I think I knew of an iteration of that which was pronounced slightly differently, but I presume there's not that many of your last names around.
No, there's a few. Yeah, there's not that many.
So she goes. I mean, first of all, how do you show up at someone's front doorstep and ask if they're the owners of the Libs of TikTok handle? Does she go like one to the other and then until she finally stumbles across you?
Well, I was actually not in California at that time. I was supposed to be, and I wasn't. I was supposed to go back the next day. And then when that happened, I obviously didn't go back, and I sort of went into hiding. I'll just note it was also right in the middle of a Jewish holiday of Passover. So we're like celebrating the holiday with our family. And then this crazy lady shows up to all of our relatives' doors. So it was, I think, no one ever really talked about this, and I never did either, but I think it was very insensitive on the part of Washington Post to do that in middle of a Jewish holiday. So that's actually the timing that it happened. So I was away with family when she actually came to my relatives' homes.
In a way, the high holidays or the Jewish holidays, it's a good time to know that you will be home because you won't be at work or people won't be at school. So kind of cheap and maybe deliberate.
I think it was very rude. Mm-hmm. I mean, like to specifically target an Orthodox Jewish woman in middle of celebrating a Jewish holiday is just really nasty. But I'm not surprised. I wouldn't put anything past Taylor Lorenz or Washington.
So she goes to several family member houses. How does and then what? Like when does she actually? First question first. The German guy. The defense to Taylor Lorenz had always been that I just republished what someone else had already published somewhere on Twitter. Had the German guy already published your information that you were a real estate agent and that you were the handle, so that Taylor Lorenz was just republishing, albeit amplifying massively what few people knew existed?
So he had published my handle, but he doesn't have a lot of followers. It didn't really get a lot of traction. But I remember opening my phone after the holiday, and someone had sent me the tweet, and I opened the tweet and I see my name there on this guy's Twitter, and my heart literally it stopped. I mean, I still remember exactly where I was standing, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening. And I had known for about, like I said earlier, I had known for probably 2-3 months that it was inevitable. But it was so unexpected of when it happened. And I was like, I still didn't know that it would come through Taylor Lorenz or it would come through Washington Post. I didn't know how it would happen, but I was shaking, and I was like, this is happening. And it ended up happening about 3 days later. So I did have a little bit of time to prepare and recover and whatever. But that initial shock of seeing my name, because I had gone to great lengths to protect it. I was getting invited to a lot of events and interviews, and I declined everything because I was like, I want to be anonymous. And there was one time actually where I had sent an email from our Libs of TikTok email, and by mistake, because of the software we were using, my name was written on the bottom of the email. That had happened 3 weeks earlier. And I'd responded to someone in the email, and it was just an automatic feature that my name was on the bottom, as a signature. And I literally almost had a heart attack. I was like, oh my God, like I'm screwed. And I was like petrified. And then, I mean, it was fine because it was someone friendly. I don't even think they noticed. They might not even have known that I was like trying to be anonymous. And it was also someone who was like sending me whistleblower documents. So I didn't think that they would go out and share that with anyone. But like that was like traumatic for me. And then, 3 weeks later, I see my name on Twitter and I was like, oh my God. Like it was very, very emotional. And then, then I'm going through my phone again and I have a ton of messages from Taylor Lorenz. And I was like putting all the pieces together. And then I have a relative who has the same name as me, who actually doesn't want to be anonymous. And she has an Instagram account where she's like an Instagram influencer. So Taylor was harassing her as well. And when the story eventually dropped, a lot of people started harassing her. So I obviously felt really bad about that, but that Taylor should have also clarified that that's not the same one. But so she was like messaging me. She's like, this lady, Taylor Lorenz, reached out to me. And then I had like a bunch of emails and missed calls and texts and voicemails from Taylor. And I was just like, the whole weight of everything, like sort of like came onto me. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a really insane week. And then, the rest is history.
Did you ever meet her face to face?
No.
And did she ever get any answers from you of the questions she asked, or she published before having gotten a reply?
No, I never responded to her. So that was at night when all this happened, when I saw all the Taylor Lorenz stuff and this Travis Brown stuff. And then the next day she showed up at all my relatives' homes. I was still like not sure how this was going to play out. I was like, I didn't know. And then when she showed up I was like, what am I supposed to do? There was nothing I could do. I just like sit and hold my phone and wait. And I don't know. And then the next day, like my relatives start calling me and they're like, this lady named Taylor just showed up to my house.
And you had no idea who Taylor Lorenz was before this?
No. I didn't know. I had no idea who she was.
Okay, so she meets with her family. If there's any interesting details, let me know. But ultimately, she publishes the story, and in as much as your heart skipped a beat when you saw your name with the German guy on his Twitter handle, when this article drops, it's not that it's that. There's nothing devastating in it, in terms of like, they're not revealing the bad things that you've never done because you've never done the bad things, but they're identifying you now.
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't have known that. Like, I had no idea. For 3 days, I'm sitting there like, what is this article going to say? Do they have do they have photos of me? If yes, which ones? Do they have videos of me as a kid, like acting weird? Like, did they hack my, I don't know, did they find out where I went to school and like contact my teachers to like say bad things? Like, I have no idea. Like, the sky's the limit. I had no idea what was going to be in it. And then, when the article actually dropped, there was nothing in it because first of all, there is nothing on me. I think I'm a little bit too young to have like, a very checkered history.
No, you're not. But never mind. No, you've lived a moral. I mean, I say this. I don't want to tempt anybody. As a 13-year-old troublemaker, people could find fun stories that if I haven't already shared them. But you've led a moral life, and you seem to have been a well-behaved teenager, from what it seems. Maybe I'm wrong. So the article drops, and you're reading it. And what's the sensation when you're reading about yourself in the Washington Post?
Yeah. So the most devastating thing in there was really just my name, and then posting the addresses. I had like 3 days to prepare. So when it actually dropped, it wasn't as it wasn't as dramatic as I thought it would be, because I had known for a few days that this was going to be happening, but it was more just like the suspense of like, what else do they have, or what have they found? And so, I was relieved that there was nothing else. I was like, maybe they found like an old friend who like has a vendetta against me. Like, I had no idea. So that was relieving. It was just like, it's just my name.
Yeah,
And
well, and where you worked, and like, I think that the risk when dealing with unscrupulous journalists is, if they can't find any dirt, yeah, where's the easiest dirt to try to make something up? Allegations related to your practice as an agent, maybe a rival who's going to say she lied, whatever. But when it drops and it identifies you, and you had been public enemy number one, from the very same people who were posting these videos that you were just amplifying. They post the videos because they want the world to see them. And then you amplify them, and then they get mad at you, and you become public enemy number one for doing more efficiently what they were trying to do in the first place. What's the response from the general public? How bad did the online harassment get? And what was that like?
well, right. So it was obviously trending news for like 2 days. It was front page news. And from the right, it was incredible. I mean, I've only been in this space for short, but I've heard from people who were in the space for much longer than me that the response from the right was like unlike anything they've ever seen before. I mean, the way that every single person just came and supported me and rallied around me. I got flooded with messages, calls from prominent people, from so many people. But I mean, like DeSantis offered me to come stay at his house if I didn't feel safe. And then I had Marjorie Taylor Greene call me. I remember Madison Cawthorn texted me. Who else was there? There were so many people, like even just Ben Shapiro, and Matt Walsh, folks at Daily Wire, people at Fox. Tucker obviously was super supportive. And then you had the elected officials. It was so incredible. Like I felt so supported by everyone. And that was like, it was amazing. I mean, we're talking about like everyone. And then Jeremy Boring teamed up with Tim Pool, and they put up a billboard in Times Square that said Taylor Lorenz docs Libs of TikTok. And that was like, I mean, it was so great. It was amazing. Like I had so many people offering to help me. Seth Dillon was amazing. He was so nice. He helped me a lot. So it was so incredible. But then obviously on the flip side, you have the leftists, right? So they, I think there was no like dirt on me, right? There's no like info besides my name. So why publish that? And I think the goal was to get people to scare me and to get people to start harassing me. So we had to like put up security like all over our house. And then I started getting flooded with like death threats and, like, now I know where you live. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come kill you. You better be careful. I'm coming tomorrow. You should die, this, that, whatever. And then they're all trying to find stuff about me, about my relatives, about anyone with my last name. A lot of people sharing my last name were getting harassed on like, people searching up their numbers and getting a lot of phone calls and text messages, like with really disgusting language. And then obviously the left-wing media, was all supporting Taylor, and they were pro the doxing. So it was like two extremes. But I don't know if I would have been able to get through it without all that support I got from people on the right. And I think, I think the whole goal was to scare me. And it obviously didn't work. It completely backfired. So, like to me, when that happened, I'm like thinking, like, what happens next, right? Like now everyone knows my name, and I'm like, it wasn't even like a second of having to like think about it. It was like, I'm just gonna fight harder. Like I'm gonna do this harder because I see how much it angers them, and I have to continue doing this. It wasn't even like a thought. It wasn't even a debate in my mind.
Well, and I think also once you've lived through that experience, you do realize it is noise. It's intended to be purely psychological.
Yeah.
The people doing it do it just because it's anonymous and it's easy. And what they try to do is, other than intimidate and all that stuff, go after, I presume, your business. Did you have anybody, filing complaints about you as an agent? Did you give up your practice?
Well, I actually had not been doing real estate for a couple months at that point. I think my license was even expired. And the owner of the company I worked for, I called him and I was like, look, this is what's happening. Like they named your company. So let me know if there's any way I can help. And he's like, oh, we're handling it. They were getting a lot of emails and calls saying like, you guys are employing a terrorist, a Nazi, a fascist, you have to fire her. I'm never going to work with your company. You guys are evil, awful, whatever, all those types of stuff. And that's in New York, right? So this is like liberal New York. So there was a fear that it could impact their business. But thankfully that passed really quickly. It was just 2-3 days. And then everyone forgot about it. And I wasn't even working there anymore at the time. So they were fine in the end.
And I presume that the deluge that you were experiencing also subsided. You probably still get the here and there's even today, but the deluge subsided after a week or so?
Well, there's like flare-ups. So, so obviously then it was really crazy. Then there was, when the whole left-wing media decided that I was somehow responsible for a bomb threat in a children's hospital. That was obviously a flare-up, tons of death threats and really nasty messages. There was a time that the left-wing media decided that I was responsible for the Colorado nightclub shooting. Again, so there's like ups and downs. When I did the face reveal, there were obviously tons of death threats again. So on a weekly basis, I would say I probably get between death threats and like really nasty messages on a weekly basis, I probably get like between 1 to 2 dozen. And then if there's like a flare up or like the media decides that I am responsible for something, then I probably get like 5 dozen.
Now, speaking of flare-ups and not talking about hemorrhoids, hold on. Let me bring this up here. I didn't hear what happened with AOC, and you'll have to give me some context. But hold on, let me just see. I thought I had, bookmarked CBC. Okay, hold on. So I'm gonna have to just open this incognito. We'll watch a short video, and then we're gonna see what's going on because it's unbelievable. And the way to blame you for anything bad that happens because you are amplifying what people want the world to hear in any event. Here we go. I think this is it. Okay, here. Let's see this here. I don't know what it is. I haven't watched this yet. Let's go ahead and give this a watch.
Super transphobic, and I never want to share space with you. Thank you.
I am here outside the Cannon building. I was here last week because I attempted to ask AOC why she lied about me in a committee hearing. She cowered away. She refused to talk to me. So I'm back here today, 1 week later, and I'm going to deliver her an ethics complaint that I filed for lying about an American citizen in a committee hearing.
So AOC, she broke the rules. Believe it or not, there's actually rules on Capitol Hill. And 23 Clause 1 is a big one. You got to act in a way that reflects credibility on the House.
Hold on. Chaya, do we know, did this guy identify himself? This is your lawyer, I presume, right?
Yeah, so I filed this with the help of the Heritage Foundation Oversight Project. So that's their lawyer. His name is Mike. Really great guy.
Okay.
And lying about, a U.S. citizen certainly doesn't do that.
I don't know what the lie was. What was the lie?
Let's go inside and see if she's there.
I'll explain that.
What are you doing?
Did you have permission to be there? We wouldn't want you getting charged with obstruction of Congress or parading and picketing okay.
Right, so basically a few weeks ago, AOC lied about me in a committee hearing.
Okay.
So I tried to come last week and talk to her, but she kind of cowered away, wasn't interested in talking to me. So together with Mike from the Heritage Foundation Oversight, he helped me file this ethics complaint. So we filed that. And if you can give it to AOC, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And tell her to stop lying about American citizens.
Thanks for the advice, Chaya.
Dropped off an ethics complaint at AOC's office, and unfortunately she wasn't there. so we left, and then I was walking through the Capitol, and guess who I bumped into? AOC herself. I just delivered an ethics complaint to your office because you lied about me.
You didn't know? Oh my goodness. She didn't know who you were at first.
No, she didn't know. She was standing there, and I was like,
She thought you were an adoring fan.
yeah. I was like, can I take a picture with you? She's like, sure.
Oh.
I just delivered an ethics complaint to your office because you lied about me in a committee hearing.
Yeah, no,
so
actually,
I never inspired about
No, you're actually super transphobic, and I never want to share space with you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. What was the lie? Was it about having inspired a bomb threat?
Yeah, so she said in a committee hearing a couple weeks ago that I inspired a bomb threat and I lied about Boston Children's Hospital. So, right away, obviously, I called her out. And then last week, I was in DC and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go confront AOC and ask her why she lied about me. And I was like ready to sit there and talk to her and discuss this. So I don't know if you saw part 1 last week, but basically I went over and they were like, oh, she's not here. She can't talk right now. So I left her a note. She has these sticky notes on the wall. So I left her a note and I wrote, stop lying about American citizens. And then this week I was back in DC. So we were working this week on filing an ethics complaint. And then I went to deliver it to her. And again, she wasn't there or wasn't available. So, I thought it was over, and then we're leaving and we're walking through the Capitol, and then we bumped into her. So it was really perfect. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anything will happen with the ethics complaint, but I think it's really important to show these people that you're going to hold them accountable and you're not just going to let them do whatever they want and just go around lying and defaming people that they disagree with.
Well, not to add a little more pessimism to that, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has 2 convictions under the Ethics Act, and he's still Prime Minister. 3 ethics. I don't know if he's had more complaints. 2 bona fide convictions for ethics violations under the, I don't know if it's the federal whatever that federal Ethics Act is. Still Prime Minister. People still vote for it. Makes no difference. Okay, so hold on a second. She accuses you of being transphobic. Chaya, you know what? I would accuse her of being anti-Semitic because the only reason she would presume that you're transphobic is because she's assuming that religious Jews or religious people themselves have something against transgender or people who identify themselves as transgender. Let me ask you this because I know the answer. People will accuse you of targeting certain groups. What is the motivation for what you do? Like you put people who want their message to be out there on blast with commentary, but why do you pick on the subject matter that you decide to address?
Well, I think that up until very recently, it was not a partisan issue, and we sort of all agreed as human beings that we always protect kids and we let kids be kids, and we don't bring kids into we don't bring kids into this, right? And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, well, kids should be able to chop off their breasts, and kids should be able to go on puberty blockers, and kids should be able to attend strip shows and drag shows and read porn in school. So it's like, I mean, it's really sad that it's become a partisan issue, and it's associated with like left versus right, because I think it happened pretty recently. And my goal is to protect childhood innocence, right? Let kids be kids, let them grow up, protect the children at all costs. Let's not sexualize kids. Let's not prey on kids. And then I'm going to call out anyone who's doing that. So, I don't care what group they're in, there are people who prey on kids who are not necessarily far leftist, I think. So, that's not something that I'm afraid to call out. But they always say like, oh, well, are you against these beauty pageants or like Hooters where they go and there's waitresses wearing sexualized clothes? And I'm like, yeah, I'm against that too. Like, I'm just against sexualizing kids, and ripping away their innocence. That's what I'm against.
I mean, what do you attribute this descent of humanity to? Now you say it like we should be protecting kids, not making them the object of politics. And the COVID pandemic was like the first time in my life where children were being used as the shields
Yeah.
And I said, look at that. For the first time, humanity is using children as the shield for the elderly. And someone astutely retorted, like back in the day, they used to throw virgins into volcanoes and they used to sacrifice children because they thought it would protect the people. Do you have any cosmic, spiritual, or political insight or theory as to why the hell the world is degenerating the way we see it degenerating?
Well, I think it's been going on for probably longer than we'd like to admit. And I think a lot of people just didn't realize or weren't paying attention, or maybe we didn't have the proper platforms to really expose it. But now all of a sudden, like I'm talking about drag a lot, and I'm talking about the porn in schools a lot, and the sexualized adult entertainment. But the truth is, this has been around for like more than 5 years, like close to I think the first drag show for kids that I saw on record was like in 2014. So maybe it was even earlier. So like this has been going on for a while, but like no one was talking about it, and no one was really honing in on it and paying attention. And now I'm doing that, and I'm very humbled that I'm able to do this for people and to share this agenda. But I mean, I think that their goal is to just create this like destructive and chaotic society where everyone is just confused about their identity and their gender, and everyone's super just sensitive, and they want to, so that they're easier to control. That's what I think. I don't know if they have a plan necessarily for what happens after, but I think that they just want chaos.
The amazing thing is the shifting of the Overton's window, because once upon a time, it's like the defund the police. When it first started, everyone said it was ridiculous, left and right, and then people said it enough and enough, and then some people started saying, well, maybe it makes a little sense, and then it actually became liberal democratic policy. With once upon a time, I'm older than you. There was a movie called Teenagers. Oh no, it was called Kids. It was a movie called Kids, depicting like debauchery, degeneracy among kids, and people were outraged that they were actually getting 16-year-old kids to make out on camera for a movie. And now we're in a world where the CBC, government subsidized media, is sitting kids down to have a very uncomfortable meet and greet with drag queens. And let me ask you this, on a personal basis. I mean, what's your sentiment to anybody who, a full-grown adult in full awareness of fact and law, who decides to do whatever they want with their body? I mean, what are your views on that at large?
On an adult becoming transgender?
An adult, full-grown adult, mentally fit, full awareness of fact and law, who decides to do these things. Do you have any personal moral gripe with that?
I do. From a personal perspective, I think I don't know if you saw Michael Knowles, his speech at CPAC, they got really upset about it, but I think he was right. It's the whole idea of transgenderism is based on a lie. You cannot change your gender. It's arguable that there even is such a thing as gender that's separate from sex. That was made up by people. And I think that's what started this whole badness that we're seeing. But there are two sexes, there's male and female, and there's nothing else, and you can't change it. So, I think if we let adults say oh, well, actually, I want to be the opposite one. Let me chop off my breast. Let me chop off my penis. Are we going to let people who decide that they're disabled go blind? Are we going to let people who decide that they should not have legs chop off their legs? And there are very few cases of that actually happening, by the way. There have been a handful of stories of doctors who did that. So I think it's how does that all make sense? I don't think it does.
Here, do I pull it up? It was the article from the Mirror, but there was an actual story of a woman who claimed to identify as being blind.
Yeah.
And actually got a doctor, I think it was a psychologist, to blind her by pouring acid into her eyes. And she said even as it was happening, she felt liberated. She felt vindicated.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. Once upon a time when the discussion could be had openly, there was a time when people said, there's nothing to be ashamed of in terms of mental illness. Have an open discussion about it. Talk about it freely. If you're depressed, if you have anxiety, if you have OCD, if you have generalized anxiety disorder, if you had things like body dysmorphia or body dysphoria, I forget which one, anemia. Not anemia, I'm an idiot. Bulimia, and the other one when you are Anorexia, sorry, yes. And so there was a time when people said, talk about it so you could deal with it and get therapy, which the therapy was a different type of therapy than catering to it. And the analogy that people are using today is like, imagine someone who's anorexic says, I feel fat, and a doctor's like, that's because you identify as fat. You should really go out and exercise more and eat less and throw up more, which is sort of what's going on right now. But it's a diagnosable thing, gender dysphoria. It's been in the DSM-5 for decades.
Yeah, it's in the DSM.
And nobody should be discriminated against for any mental disorder, whether it's gender dysphoria or OCD or neuroses or whatever.
I agree.
And so like the question becomes, are we not just normalizing but encouraging this? That's where it becomes an issue broader than an adult saying it's my body. I'm more inclined to say adults, it's your body. If you're of sound mind and you're not being exploited, you're not being other mental issues that you're going through are not being exploited for the purposes of pushing this. Like when I interviewed Tulip Ritchie, who's an adult man who was going through a number of psychological issues, but then gets whipped up because of those psychological issues into transgenderism, ends up removing his penis and waking up immediately after the surgery, regretting is an understatement. What now? What is the solution to this, and how do people get out of it? Or how does society get out of it without devolving into more violence?
I think we get out of it by exposing it, because sunlight is the best disinfectant. And just like there are so many stories of detransitioners who are younger, but I mean, we need to start talking about adult detransitioners as well. That's what I think. And there are a lot of adults, I think, who will regret their transition. It's the same thing with kids, because they really only started doing this pretty recently. So, and they keep saying, well, if so many people are detransitioning and they regret it, then why don't the studies show that? And it's like, well, because you guys just started doing this like literally 3 years ago. So how could we have all that data yet? But there's so much evidence that what they're doing is actually bad and wrong. So, I think it will just be another few years until we do have all those studies and all that data from all those people, kids and adults, who regret their transition, just because the whole idea of transitioning to another gender is based on a complete lie. And someone who's struggling with their body and with gender dysphoria, I feel bad for them. I really do. I really sympathize. And they're suffering, and they should get help. So I think as a society, we should be exposing the agenda and why it's wrong and why it's bad. At the same time, we need to be offering solutions for this mental health crisis that's plaguing our country. I speak about it a lot. I say, there's a serious mental health crisis in America, and I don't think it's being addressed enough. It should be. I don't know what we need to do. Maybe we need to create more programs. Maybe more people need to step up. I know that the First Lady of Florida has a whole program where she talks about and helps kids who are suffering from mental health crisis or from addiction. So maybe each state has to pay more attention to it. But I think you rarely hear politicians talking about it, and I think they should.
And I was just looking it up for another reason, because I posted yesterday the gun statistics, ownership in America versus ownership in Switzerland, and correlated intentional homicide. And some people thought I was trying to make a racial comment, but I was actually more focusing on the use of antidepressants and the prescription of antidepressants among a generalized population. Switzerland does seem to be high in respect of Europe, but I think exponentially lower than America, and Canada's pretty bad as well. There's a mental health crisis. There's not a doubt about it. This self-harm, suicide, drug overdoses in both Canada and the US. It materializes itself differently depending on the country, but suicidal ideation, self-harm, spiking in both Canada and the US, despite the CBC, the same network that put together the drag time Q&A, said in before any stats were in, the pandemic actually lowered suicide rates. Yeah, maybe because people couldn't, go outside. You speak very eloquently politically. And I think one of the questions many people are going to ask is, are you going to get into politics in a meaningful way, like run for office and try to give AOC a little political run for her money?
Well, definitely not in AOC's district because it's like a hard D, and I don't even live there, so I think that would be a waste of time and money. But I mean, yeah, people ask me that all the time. I think like what I'm doing now, I think is really important. I really love what I'm doing now, and I'm going to continue doing it for as long as I can. And I think as far as the future, you know, I'm not going to put myself in any like boxes. I think that God put me in this position for a reason. I think that this is, you know, this is my mission. So, you know, if God, you know, finds another path for me, then I'll follow that. So, I mean, you never know what could happen. I mean, 2 years ago, I never thought that this would happen. So, you know, it's not something I ever wanted, but you know, it's sort of, it was my calling. It was like, God was like calling on me to do this. That's what I feel like. So I feel like I found my calling, and I'm put in this position for a reason. So, you know, whatever happens next, I don't know. But I'm excited to see.
Fantastic. And I know I said I would keep you 1 hour, and we've done good. If I may just ask, there's a question in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com question for LOT. I'm so stupid. When I saw LOTT, I thought it was Lord of the Rings or Lord of the something sequel when I didn't know what Libs of TikTok was. The more I'm active on social media as a, quote, right-winger, which I'm not. This is from D2QC in our locals community. I'm under the impression that I'm living a double life. Did you experience the same thing? Was coming out a relief for you? I didn't actually ask this if you're not uncomfortable answering the question. Parents liberal, conservative? Most people think religious Jews are going to be conservative.
Conservative, yeah.
Okay. And was it a relief to come out? Are you finding that there's a lot of closet Republicans, closet conservatives out there who are now taking inspiration from your strength?
You know, after I was doxxed, remember I said, like, I didn't know if they found a picture. So every single day I was like, is today going to be the day that they find a picture? Because then that's when I'm like, you know, I'm really out. And it was 8 months of waiting and seeing, and it was very anxiety inducing. And that's when I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I came out. So it actually was a huge relief to come out, and to show my face. But I didn't come out as, you know, I was always conservative, and my family was too. So I know that there are a lot of people, I get a lot of messages from liberals and Democrats, and they're like, I love what you're doing. I can't like follow you or share it, you know, because my friends will know I'll lose my job or whatever it is. But I think that, and this goes back to a little bit to what I was saying before, that most of the stuff that I talk about should not really be a left versus right issue. This is about a protecting children issue. And a lot of liberals and Democrats are on the same page. It's really this like far left group that advocates for sexualizing and grooming kids. So, and I know that there have been a lot of people who've reached out to me and said, like, I know I'm no longer a Democrat because of your account. So I think I have inspired a lot of people, and I hope to continue doing that.
And now, if I may, there's some Rumble rants on the Rumble side of things. If I go over here, one is a joke, which is mildly inappropriate, but I'll have to read it. Chaosity says the best thing about conservative women is no penis. Okay, huh?
Yeah.
Mandatory carry. Keep fighting. Also, I thought Lord of the I did it again. Libs of TikTok was a guy until some Itchbay doxter. Thank you for the support. Chaya is a brave lady. That is from Crazy Guru 1. As a Democrat, an ethics complaint won't affect AOC. That's only used for Republicans. Of course, she has to use the transphobe smear, whatever that means. And that's from TA1234. And Uncle Kenny says, thank you, Chaya, for protecting the kids. Chaya, so what's next on the agenda? And how much time a day do you spend on TikTok, or do you rely on your community to send you the really good highlights?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. I spend a lot of time researching, but I also have a lot of people sending me stuff, and I do have like an assistant who helps me. So it's like a little bit of everything. So there's a lot of content to go around.
Do you ever feel bad that you're taking someone who, you know, posted a video that got no views on TikTok and put them on a blast that, you know, maybe they didn't even think was possible in the same way you didn't think it was possible until Taylor Lorenz doxed you?
So it's a good question. Sometimes a little bit, but it depends on the type of video. If it's like, I think like at the end of the day, like it has to be done because we have to show people what is happening, and this is the best way to do it. But people ask me like, oh, when a teacher gets fired because of because of your work, do you feel bad? It's like, I do feel a little bit bad, but at the end of the day, like, they are an adult. They posted this publicly on TikTok, and the only reason they would do that is because they would want people to see it. And people have to see what's going on. Like, if you don't want your stuff to be shared, then don't share it in the first place. Like, I'm not hacking anything. I have a rule that I don't share stuff from private accounts, even if I'm following them. So it's like, don't post this publicly if you don't want it to be shared.
There was a story, I don't know who the influencer was, but they posted a video of the dad saran wrapping the kid with his arms, and they thought it was funny, and they posted it, and then they get reported to Child Protective Services. Not that I'm not in, sometimes when I retweet things, I have that reflex, and I'm not in the industry of like being the first one to find something that's going to outrage people. But the amazing thing is, like, even after you do it, it's not even as though you find the most outrageous things that should elicit unanimous condemnation.
Yeah.
And when they don't, that is, I mean, in my mind, if I had to rationalize what would make me feel bad doing in the first place, that would be it. The fact that everyone's not unanimously outraged about some of these things, so much so that it's now mainstream CBC, that is the need to show it and
Yeah,
make
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
All right. And now, so you have an assistant. So this has become a thing. How can people support you if they want to support you?
So I have a Substack, which is at libsoftiktok.com. So that's a really great way to support me. I post stories there that are a little bit longer, have more research, or more interesting, than just a TikTok video. So you could become a subscriber there, or a paid subscriber to help support us. And then I also wrote a kids book, which is available on lottbook.com, and it basically just strengthens the family and teaches parents and kids to build a trusting relationship, so that kids don't get preyed upon. So it's a really good message, really good story. So you can buy it on Amazon or lottbook.com.
All right, you'll flip me all of those links right after we're done, and I'll put them in the pinned comment. And I'm just looking to see if there's any questions that I missed here. Chaya, I think we did everything. We got it all into a cram-packed hour. Thank you very much. I mean, people are gonna say keep doing what you're doing. Others are gonna say stop doing what you're doing because it's making us look like depraved individuals. When you can't even get AOC to say an adult doing what they want to themselves, or even among consenting adults, is one thing, but thinking that you're treating a child by permanently altering their body because of what is, I say that the biggest irony of the trans movement is it being fundamentally misogynist and homophobic to a certain extent, is you're basically telling otherwise gay kids that no, there's something wrong with you because you must be born into the wrong body if you're attracted to the same sex. And it seems to be very one way in any event for now. But Chaya, thank you very much. Send me the links. We'll post it out there. Everybody, there's not going to be an exclusive locals after this. I'll go live with locals later today. I've got to do a few things this afternoon. Thank you very much. It's been fascinating, and let's do it again. And stick around. We'll say our proper goodbyes after I hit end broadcast. But thank you, everyone. You know where Libs of TikTok is. Go find Libs of TikTok and follow if you want to support. You know how to do it, and I'll put the links up. Chaya, thank you very much. Enjoy.